Broadcasting from deep behind enemy lines in the occupied territory of the Socialist Republic of California. Your host, former California State Assemblyman and Governor candidate, Tim Donnelly.
Well, welcome to another edition of the Tim Donnelly Show. Hope you had a great weekend out there. I know I did, in part because I didn't spend any money watching Pacquiao. Was that a fight? I mean, was there a fight? It seems as if it wasn't even a fight. But I guess some people watched it, and a lot of people paid, but there wasn't much to it. It was kind of like watching Republicans in California take on the Democrats. They never really connected any of their punches, or they didn't have any effect. But there is some tragic news out of New York. There was a New York police officer, a young man, 25 years old, named Brian Moore, who was shot in the face over the weekend and has succumbed to his wounds and tragically passed away at such a young age. He was shot in the face by a thug. Yes, I said thug. Let me say it again. I don't know what color this thug was, and I don't care. His name is Demetrius Thug Blackwell, and he was a thuggish thug who thought it was okay to walk up to a police officer who was minding his own business and shoot him in the face. And of course, he has a criminal record because he is a thug. And anyone who behaves in a thuggish manner deserves to be called a thug. And I really don't care what Soledad O'Brien or the PC crowd says about it. And I don't think most Americans care. And we're getting sick and tired of being told that we can't use certain words because they're offensive. You know, I've been thinking about this. We can't use certain words. The left actually gets more offended by the words we use than by the evil that we're describing. And that's a serious problem because they control the media. I don't know if you've noticed, but there is an attempt by the left to completely shut down the discussion whenever you use certain words. Or if you happen to believe in certain images. Let me throw a really controversial image out there at you. The American flag. The American flag has been banned in high schools in California on Cinco de Mayo. Not every high school has succumbed to this PC stupidity. PC standing for political correctness. We need to come up with some other word because it's stupidity by any other name. But because a fight broke out at one high school in Northern California, American students are forbidden to wear the flag of this country on Cinco de Mayo. That's tomorrow, by the way. Meanwhile, there are American troops in harm's way. There are Americans bleeding for that flag. There are Americans risking everything for that flag. And there are schools in this state, in California, that have forbidden students to wear that offensive image because it might offend somebody else. You know what? If the American flag offends you, why are you in America? I'm sorry. It's one thing about America is we're free. And if you don't like it, you can leave. And I say that maybe with a little more vehemence than you might think is appropriate, but that's in part because also over the weekend, there was a video. As a matter of fact, my son happened to see it on Instagram and was debating with other students. But we'll be playing it at some point in the show today because we've got an action-packed show for this Monday. Bethany, it's like a manic Monday. I don't know if you can get that song up, but there is so much news from over the weekend. It's hard to keep up. But in this video, there is a young black woman who is jumping up and down on the flag and talking about stomping the flag in the name of some individual named Eric Shepard, who evidently was part of the Valdosta protest that we brought you weeks ago. And this is now spreading all across social media. It's spreading across the country with a certain segment of the population. And I don't know about you, but it infuriates me to see people who have never sacrificed anything, period. All they care about is themselves. It's crystal clear with their attitudes. They've never sacrificed for the greater good of anyone. They've never put their lives on the line for this country, and yet they feel the freedom to spit in the face of everyone who does, and everyone who has, and everyone who is continuing to do so to this day. And they believe that they have earned. No, I take that back. It's not about earning. It's about being entitled. They believe they're entitled simply because they're entitled to do whatever they want and call it freedom. And they believe there will be no consequences. And when you hear this video, and if you see it, you will, without doubt, be absolutely horrified and livid beyond belief, and justifiably so. You know, one thing I was hoping to hear was from the President of the United States. I thought maybe, given that he spoke out about the death of Michael Brown, given that he spoke out about the death of Freddie Gray, given that he spoke out about what happened in New York with Eric Garner, given that I thought he might actually say a word about Brian Moore, the police officer who was shot in the face simply because he was a police officer. But I'm still waiting. The hypocrisy knows no bounds. But there is good news in America. Yes, I'm pausing so that you will hear it. There is great news in America. You all heard about the murders that occurred in Paris when the Charlie Hebdo publication put out the cartoons on Mohammed. And I've lost count of the number that were shot down in cold blood for exercising their freedom of speech. But the Islamic jihadists thought they could pull that off in Texas. Well, when we get back after the break, I will fill you in on the details. We have that. We are hoping to be able to pull up a clip, a couple of clips for you today that are going to be incredibly educational. But today, the theme of today's show is fighting political correctness. Political correctness has run amok in the United States of America. And when you can't speak the truth about what is happening, you can't fight it. We also have some great news coming up in the 2016 update. And then, sadly, we will have to tell you what's going on in, I think, Bethany, I'm going to call it the Meanwhile in California segment of the show. Hey, if you want to get in on it, if you're fired up like I am, 323-746-TALK, 323-746-8255. We on the Tim Donnelly Show. Stay tuned.
Don't you think it's about time you treat yourself or someone you love to something very special? Well, Ozell Jewelers, the finest jewelry store in the high desert, is known throughout the high desert for having the largest variety of fine-looking jewelry and gifts for every special occasion. Ozell custom designs and manufactures their own jewelry, so you'll be able to find exclusive, one-of-a-kind, stunning styles you won't find anywhere else in Southern California. If you're looking for fine jewelry at unbeatable prices, Ozell Jewelers is the place to go. Show appreciation to that special person in your life with something special to cherish forever. Ozell Jewelers, voted best jewelers in the high desert by the Daily Press regularly for years. Ozell Jewelers has been putting smiles on high desert faces for over 30 years. Ozell Jewelers in Rancho Cucamonga, Palm Desert, and Amargosa Road by Red Lobster in Victorville. Ozell Jewelers.
Hey, if you like shooting as much as I do, you've probably been to a lot of ranges. Unless you visited Burro Canyon Shooting Park, you've never seen anything like it. On the way there, you'll find yourself taking pictures as you traverse the majestic Azusa Canyon and wind your way up into the Angeles National Forest. With over 600 acres, including 19 private ranges, there's something for everyone. There's rifle and pistol ranges for beginners, right up to advanced shooters. And there's plenty of spaces to shoot sporting clay. You can make a family day of it, or you can bring a group for team building exercises. Bring a picnic lunch. On the weekends, they provide lunch. And don't worry, they always have ammo in case you forget yours or run out. One thing I can guarantee is that once you visited my friends at Burro Canyon Shooting Park, you'll be hooked, and you'll keep coming back. BurroCanyon.com is their website, or call them at 626-910-1344, 626-910-1344. Hey, if you like what you've been hearing on the Tim Donnelly Show, then support it. If you own a business, we have a tremendous audience, not only on air, but also online. And we've got a great social media presence, and you can participate in all of that by simply picking up the phone and calling 760-244-4444. That's the office line to Bethany, who can schedule you to come in and record your own commercial, or you can send us a script and I'll read it. Whatever you do, you got to act now, because your future customers are my loyal listeners. We are back on the Tim Donnelly Show, heard on the Radio Free California Network. We stream live at timdonnellyshow.com. Hey, and if you want to send us a tweet, it's at Tim Donnelly Show. We make it simple for you. Everything centers around Tim Donnelly Show. timdonnellyshow.com. We're on Twitter. We're on Facebook. And, you know, I got an interesting note from, it is actually from a Facebook friend, but I want to read it to you because I think it is something that perhaps more than a majority have actually thought about, but more and more Californians are actually taking action on. And it says, "Dear California, for the last 20 years, I have called you my home. During this time, I have lived in Century City, Manhattan Beach, Rancho Palos Verdes, Corona del Mar, and Newport Beach, prior to finding a great little spot in Irvine. I ran for a local office, became an activist in my community, and even fought the law and won. Justice was served. Quite the ride. However, over the last 20 years, I have watched our freeways crumble, our costs skyrocket due to regulations and tax increases, our borders dissolve, our welfare rolls skyrocket, and the growth and greed of the government in Sacramento punish the very people it relies on. For every dollar I make, you believe you are entitled to a significant portion of it. In fact, this state has the highest taxes in the country, the largest bureaucracy, and the most people living off of other people's money. You continue to grow the welfare state without any consideration for those that make your socialist policy a reality. We don't get a thank you card. We get the middle finger. The liberals have won a supermajority in the legislature and are now deciding on a bill to give illegal aliens the right to vote. Did anyone think that giving illegals driver's licenses had anything to do with driving? What? A ruse? So I begin the second half of my life with the goals of getting ahead instead of getting by, and truly enjoying my hard-earned dollars instead of being forced to do with less for the common good. I've decided to list my home and relocate to a state where my money goes much further and my personal success and happiness can flourish. With the money I save, I will return, and you can have my tourism dollars when I visit the beach in Laguna or the wineries up north. I assume my home will sell relatively quickly as I live in a desirable area. So I bid you farewell. And I thank you for forcing me into a decision I have been contemplating for many years. The great thing about money and freedom, mobility. Sugar, that's my mini, and I will be mobile soon. And when I cross the state line, I may return your middle finger salute as I throw Sugar into sixth gear. It's all about fairness, right? I read that, and as heartbreaking as it is to see another one of my fellow Californians who is employed and who is part of the solution leaving. I mean, she wants to go to a free state. You can't blame her. And you know, if we're going to stay a free country, we're going to have to chart a different course than we're on right now. Because there's too many people that are doing nothing but complain and ride in a wagon pulled by the rest of us. And they've got the government on their side. The government is the mafia that is trying to keep the rest of us in line to make sure that we continue pulling that cart. Bethany, do you have that tape ready to go? No. Okay, I'll... You're going to have to wait for that. But I did promise you good news. So I need a drum roll, please, and I will give you the good news. So the Muslim extremist, Islamic jihadist terrorist. Did I say that well enough? Does anybody have any question about whom I'm talking about? I'm not talking about Catholics. I'm not talking about Baptists. I'm not talking about Presbyterians or Methodists. I'm talking about those who say they follow a religion of peace, but who practice a perverted faith. And I can't even call it a faith because they believe it's okay to murder anybody who criticizes their religion. And they were stupid enough to try it in Texas. And there is a friend of the Tim Donnelly Show who you will meet, Pamela Geller, who, by the way, is an extraordinary individual. Do you remember when they were trying to put a mosque at the right near Ground Zero in New York? Is that you nodding your head?
I do, Tim.
Okay, Bethany's back. Well, this woman led hundreds of people and defeated the attempt to locate a mosque, which would have been an absolute insult to all of those who had been killed, because they were killed in the name of that religion. You can criticize me all you want. You can call me all the names you want. But that is the religion in whose name jihad is practiced. There is no other faith in modern times that practices anything like jihad. which is jihad, is the permission by your religion to kill in the name of your faith. And you kill those who refuse to convert to it. And something happened in Texas this weekend that it's like America popped up on the radar screen. And I'll tell you the full story when we get back from this break. 323-746-TALK is our number if you have something to say. If you've been listening long to the Tim Donnelly Show, you know that we talk constantly about defending freedom and about defending our natural inalienable rights. The Firearms Policy Coalition is a partner of the Tim Donnelly Show. But more than that, they're on the front lines every day in Sacramento and all across the state, in the courts, defending your Second Amendment right. That is a natural right that the government merely acknowledged in the Second Amendment. If you value your freedom, then you need to join Firearms Policy Coalition. Become a member. I'm a member, and I'm happy to support an organization that is doing such an incredible job. Go to joinfpc.org. The Tim Donnelly Show sent you. Or go to timdonnellyshow.com and click on the FPC link to make it easy. But whatever you do, join today. FPC.org. So I'm going to stop teasing and get right into it. Something happened in Texas. There was an event put on by a group run by a friend of mine, Pamela Geller, who is a very outspoken American. She tells it like it is. As I already told you, she was able to shut down the plan to build a mosque at Ground Zero. And she decided to hold a free speech event. And she picked Texas as the location. Well, you couldn't have picked a better place to hold an event where you're there to defend the First Amendment, because they take the Second Amendment pretty seriously. So she had an event where she said, we're going to allow people to draw Muhammad. And there's a $10,000 prize for whoever draws the best cartoon. And you can go to timdonnellyshow.com and you can see the winning entry. And it's a great image. It's an image of the Prophet Muhammad with a big sword ready to cut your head off, saying, you can't draw me. And then the hand, there's just a simple, unarmed hand that writes, that's why I draw you. And you'd think that this wouldn't be any kind of a big deal at all, but the reality in today's world is there are protected classes. You're not allowed to make fun of some religions, period. And obviously, the Muslim faith is one that is off limits. So if you remember, we talked about ISIS being just across the border, that there was a report it was just across the border from Texas. Well, it turns out it might have been just across the border in Texas, because two Islamic jihadist terrorists, and I'm not going to give you their names. You can get a news report for that. I'm just going to call them Islamic jihadist thugs, because that's going to be our new word. Every chance we get it, we're going to use it, because there are those who would try to tell us we can't. All in the name of political correctness. But these two thugs were armed with what CNN calls assault weapons. That means anything that can fire a bullet. But, of course, they were rifles, probably AR-15s or AK-47s, who knows. And they had body armor on. And they opened fire at this free speech event. And that was the last thing they ever did. Because they did this in the state of Texas. And there was a Texas traffic cop who takes his marksmanship pretty seriously. And he dispatched them to meet Allah with his service revolver. 2 shots, 2 kills. Headshots. That's what you have to do when you're dealing with people with body armor. You know, I think that right there underscores something that a lot of Americans have forgotten, which is there are some of us still in this country who understand evil. We can speak its name, and when called upon, when we are attacked, this was a vicious, violent attack on the peace and freedom of Americans simply enjoying a meeting. They were meeting to put their opinions out. And these Islamic jihadist thugs thought they could kill people with whom they disagree, but it didn't work out for them. I'm going to bring Mike on the air from La Quinta. Mike, you've got a comment on the event that happened in Texas.
Oh, sure. Pretty unbelievable they would try something that stupid in Texas.
Yeah, you think?
Yeah, and the outcome is completely predictable.
Well, I mean, it really is amazing at how pathetic they were. Here they have body armor, which presumably a round from a 45 or a 9mm or a 40 caliber is not going to go through body armor. It's just not. So they've got body armor on. They're in a car. They're driving by, and they've got some kind of semi-automatic rifle that can presumably shoot multiple rounds per second. And they did wound one security officer in the foot, but they're taken out instantaneously by one cop who's not even he's a traffic cop. I mean,
right.
But he's an American, and that really needs to be said.
Oh, absolutely. I think these guys probably didn't care if they lived or died. I'm sure they were determined to, make their statement, and I'm just surprised they, of all places, Texas. But
well, I think there was a reason that Pamela Geller held the event there. She's one of the smartest ladies in today's media. That she has written a number of books, including The Islamization of America. She's got a brand new book out. I'll talk about when I have her on the air. But she got into an epic battle with a CNN host. We have it up on our website. We're working on getting it into the computer because we want to play it for you, because you want to hear this epic showdown where you know what I liken it to, Mike? It's like when you hear an American speak and it rings true, and you think, oh, my word. And then you realize how we've been cowed into silence by political correctness.
Right. Now, there's something I had heard about Pamela Geller first on April the 21st. And I had not heard of her before that date. And then I heard about the shooting last night and the CNN report. But I don't know if you are familiar with her, and I'm trying to find more information out about her.
I am familiar with Pamela Geller. I'm a friend of Pamela's, and look,
okay. Is it true? Then because I'm not sure this is true. This is something that is not flattering, but I'm not sure that it's true. Did she sponsor advertisement on New York City buses that were promoting Muslims shooting Jews dead. And
well, don't take things out of context and play into the media's game. She ran some ads on some New York buses to raise awareness that there are groups that are calling for the death of Jews. So it's a very different thing. I will have her on the air, and I'll let her answer all the questions for herself. But yes, is she provocative? Does she get in your face and drive the debate? Obviously. I mean, this is a woman who held a contest for a cartoon. Whoever would draw the best cartoon depicting the Prophet Muhammad, knowing that it would provoke and draw fire from our enemy, who our president cannot even identify as our enemy. There is a group that has declared war on this country, and they are Islamic jihadist extremists. They are Islamic jihadist thugs. They see absolutely nothing wrong with slaughtering innocent people simply because they don't agree with their religion. And when we play the epic battle between Pamela Geller and this little anchorette on CNN, you will be cheering. You will be throwing things not at your radio. I don't know what you'll be throwing them at, but maybe your television anytime it's on CNN. But at any rate, Mike, I appreciate the call in. She is a great American, and she is a great deal of courage. And when we can, she's doing all kinds of TV interviews, but I've got to call into her because she is a friend. I will get her on the air, and you guys will be in for a treat. Thanks for calling the Tim Donnelly Show. Hey, when we come up after the break, we're going to be talking about something really important. 323-746-TALK. It just won't be the same without your voice in the conversation. 323-746-8255.
Don't you think it's about time you treat yourself or someone you love to something very special? Well, Ozell Jewelers, the finest jewelry store in the high desert, is known throughout the high desert for having the largest variety of fine-looking jewelry and gifts for every special occasion. Ozell custom designs and manufactures their own jewelry, so you'll be able to find exclusive, one-of-a-kind, stunning styles you won't find anywhere else in Southern California. If you're looking for fine jewelry at unbeatable prices, Ozell Jewelers is the place to go. Show appreciation to that special person in your life with something special to cherish forever. Ozell Jewelers, voted best jewelers in the high desert by the Daily Press regularly for years. Ozell Jewelers has been putting smiles on high desert faces for over 30 years. Ozell Jewelers in Rancho Cucamonga, Palm Desert, and Amargosa Road by Red Lobster in Victorville. Ozell Jewelers.
Back on Thug Watch, there was, over the weekend, another incident that happened in Salt Lake City. There was a woman putting her groceries in the car, and a thug came up and tried to carjack her. And by the way, from now on, we're going to always talk about people who do these evil things as thugs, and we're not going to give their names, so they get no glory. I don't care what color he was. The color the only color that matters are the color of his actions. And his actions were those of someone bent on evil. Who knows what he intended? Whether he wanted to just steal her car or take her to some remote area and rape and kill her, we don't know. Because thanks to a hero, and a hero is the opposite of a thug for Soledad O'Brien and the PC challenged in the left-wing media. But a 31-year-old male rushed over. He was a concealed carry. He had a concealed carry weapons permit, and he shot and killed this thug. And the woman was unharmed, and all the police had to do is take away the body. You know, it's nice to see Americans that actually care about each other, because that man didn't know what was going on. I mean, he knew something evil was going on, but he didn't know if the other guy had a weapon. He didn't know if he could be killed for his attempt to put his life in harm's way to save hers, but he did it anyway. And we salute him. And we salute that brave traffic cop in Texas who took out these worthless thugs, one of whom was well known to the FBI. He was on a list 5 years ago. He was brought in on charges, and they put him on probation. He was conspiring with an individual who was trying to build a terror cell in the state of Arizona. And I look at that and I think, okay, so the Department of Homeland Security that considers returning veterans a greater threat than these Islamic jihadist thugs who are conspiring to do evil in our country, who consider people who oppose abortion a greater threat than these Islamic jihadist thugs, who consider anyone who joins a Patriot or a Tea Party group to be a greater threat than Islamic jihadist thugs, who consider those who love liberty too much to be a greater threat than Islamic jihadist thugs who are conspiring to commit mayhem and murder in the name of Allah here on our soil. They're willing to set up new and grow their authority to spy on Americans. They want to set up these surveillance centers. But see, it wasn't any of DHS's equipment. It wasn't the surveillance. It wasn't the spying on Americans that saved the lives of every one of those people in Gaylord, Texas. It was a simple traffic cop who was trained well and who executed flawlessly. That man is a hero, and I'm sick and tired of everyone labeling all cops as if all cops are evil because of the actions of a tiny, pathetic, corrupt few. And it was so encouraging to see a cop be a hero. And, of course, you won't hear President Barack Hussein Obama say a word about it, because he probably mourns the fact that 2 Muslims are dead. Because I think he cares more about Muslims than he does about Americans. What do you think? 323-746 TALK, 323-746-8255. One thing I do think, and it was interesting talking to Mike earlier from La Quinta, and thank you for your call, Mike, is political correctness is killing our country. It isn't ISIS that's the greatest threat to us. It isn't the Baltimore riots or whatever undercurrent is going on there that is causing the greatest racial division, even though we were supposed to have a post-racial presidency in Barack Obama. And by the way, more on that front when we come back. We're going to have an interesting conversation about the 2016 election. It just got more and more diversified. That's a word? Why am I asking you? I'm the English major here. Hey, if you have something to say, 323-746-TALK. We got a lot more ahead on the Tim Donnelly Show. Stay tuned. Hey, if you like shooting as much as I do, you've probably been to a lot of ranges. Unless you visited Burro Canyon Shooting Park, you've never seen anything like it. On the way there, you'll find yourself taking pictures as you traverse the majestic Azusa Canyon and wind your way up into the Angeles National Forest. With over 600 acres, including 19 private ranges, there's something for everyone. There's rifle and pistol ranges for beginners, right up to advanced shooters. And there's plenty of spaces to shoot sporting clay. You can make a family day of it, or you can bring a group for team building exercises. Bring a picnic lunch. On the weekends, they provide lunch. And don't worry, they always have ammo in case you forget yours or run out. One thing I can guarantee is that once you visited my friends at Burro Canyon Shooting Park, you'll be hooked, and you'll keep coming back. BurroCanyon.com is their website, or call them at 626-910-1344, 626-910-1344. Hey, if you like what you've been hearing on the Tim Donnelly Show, then support it. If you own a business, we have a tremendous audience, not only on air, but also online. And we've got a great social media presence, and you can participate in all of that by simply picking up the phone and calling 760-244-4444. That's the office line to Bethany, who can schedule you to come in and record your own commercial, or you can send us a script and I'll read it. Whatever you do, you got to act now, because your future customers are my loyal listeners.
And now, broadcasting from deep behind enemy lines in the occupied territory of the Socialist Republic of California, your host, former California State Assemblyman and Governor candidate, Tim Donnelly.
You know, one of the things that I love about this show is you. I love it when you write in, when you call in, and Denise found our Facebook page, which is easy to find. All you have to do is go to timdonnellyshow.com and then click on the Facebook Connect, you know, that little picture in the upper right-hand corner. But she said, I'm so glad you're speaking for me. And I'm sure there are so many other people today who feel the same way. I am so sick of this politically correct crap. I like when you're all fired up, because a lot of us feel that way. Well, I appreciate the feedback, because sometimes I feel like, well, I think we all feel that way, that you're all alone, that this is driving you mad. But I try to balance out the bad news with the hopeful news. I told you about the story in Texas where the only thing that has CNN upset isn't the attempted murder of Americans for exercising their freedom of speech. Oh, no. It's the words that Pamela Geller uses in describing what happened and what's really at stake. And we will have that for you later on in the show. But I don't know what the right music is for this, Bethany. I think it's probably going to be Hotel California. You know that part where it says you can check in, but you can never leave? Are you okay? You're nodding your head again. We're not on TV.
I totally know that song.
Yeah. Yeah, we got to get that song. We got to play it. Meanwhile, in California, while people in Texas are defending the First Amendment, while people in Utah are defending innocent civilians at the grocery store, exercising their Second Amendment right, a judge has finally decided that our senators, the state senators, your legislators, which is a word I hate, because we're not supposed to have legislators, we're supposed to have representatives, but these people cannot be called representatives. So let me give you a little background. When I served in the California State Assembly, there was a movement afoot in California where some newspapers began to demand both the calendars and the budgets of every elected representative at the state level. Well, I was brand new, and I am and always have been one of us. So I said, sure, no problem. And I was one of the first and probably the only one who regularly sent my calendar and my budget to the press. And I don't know what the press ever did with my budget, because I operated my budget at something like 22%, or in the end, when you added it all up, it was almost a third less than everyone else. Now, it helped that I had a very small office and a very small staff, but I had wonderful people working for me and for you. But there were many in both parties. Now, mind you, once they get elected, they are no longer Republicans and Democrats. They just simply become part of the political class. And the leader of the permanent minority, the Republican leader, who at the time was Connie Conway, was so angry that my colleague Shannon Grove and I went to the press and handed over our calendars and said, yes, absolutely, we will give you the details. Why should the people not know what their elected officials are doing? It's your business. So you probably want to know what they're doing. Well, today is Monday. And so at 12 noon today, they took to the floor of the California State Assembly and they passed a bill without any debate whatsoever to ban the mascot Redskin. Redskin, if the governor signs this, the mascot Redskins can no longer be used anywhere in the state of California. And you remember, it was last year or perhaps a year and a half ago when Sacramento tried to send a resolution over to Washington, D.C., demanding that the Washington Redskins change their name because it's so offensive. Now, this is the government of a state of 38 million people who are on the precipice of an epic crisis, a crisis of epic proportions, simply because of their failure to act. Now, mind you, let me restate that. It's not because of a failure to act. It's because they've been doing all these boneheaded, irrelevant, and stupid things, like banning what you can name your mascot. In Tulare County, the Tulare Union High School has had Redskins as their mascot since 1890. And you know what? They don't need the state government to interfere and intervene and come and make an issue out of it. It isn't an issue, but they're making it one. And meanwhile, they've ignored what caused my friend, whose note I read you earlier, and if you didn't hear it, you're going to have to go to TimDonnellyShow.com and listen to the previous segment, but when I read that note from my friend who is leaving the state of California and heading off to Nevada, of all places, I guess she's going to... Well, I hope she doesn't run into Harry Reid. Bethany, did you see that in the news? There was some major executive, some tech exec that everybody liked. He was like 47 years old or something. Went to Mexico and had an accident on a treadmill. And you got Harry Reid, who claims that he got beat up by a rubber band from his exercise machine and slammed his head into a shower. This exercise stuff can kill you.
I don't want to hear you trying to convince yourself out of exercise.
No. Hey, I've been walking. Oh, by the way, a little update on that.
You've been...
I have... We're going to have to do another segment called There's an App for That. So I'll tell you later on what there's an app for, but it's actually really useful, and it kind of takes away all of your excuses and all of the mythology attached to what we eat. But anyway, finishing up here in California. So finally, because of a judge's order, that's what it took to force this legislature that has no regard for you, that is continually, constantly trying to take away your personal freedom, that is driving business after business after business after business out of the state of California. And by the way, let me tell you what it took just to get the judge and get the California State Senate finally to relinquish their claws from the records that Californians deserve to see. It was because of people like Senator Leland Yee, who was trading... He was trafficking guns and RPGs to terrorists in exchange for campaign contributions. So he is named along with 28 other defendants in a criminal complaint. This guy was a very powerful state senator in the state of California, and he was illegally importing firearms, meanwhile trying to take away your right to exercise a fundamental civil liberty, a fundamental freedom to defend your own life and your freedom from tyranny. But he was trading illegal arms for campaign contributions. And there were other state senators who got in trouble with the law and have been removed. There was no integrity within that body, the body that tells all the rest of us what to do, to simply follow the Constitution and expel these criminals from the state Senate. But finally, a judge has at least gotten their calendars released. So much for transparency in the state run by people who use transparency in every other word, and yet, while covering up and operating in secret, constantly trying to control us and tell us what to do. Meanwhile, in California. More coming up on the Tim Donnelly Show. We'll be changing gears here shortly. 323-746-TALK. 323-746-TALK. 8255. If you have anything on your mind, we'd love to hear it.
Don't you think it's about time you treat yourself or someone you love to something very special? Well, Ozell Jewelers, the finest jewelry store in the high desert, is known throughout the high desert for having the largest variety of fine-looking jewelry and gifts for every special occasion. Ozell custom designs and manufactures their own jewelry, so you'll be able to find exclusive, one-of-a-kind, stunning styles you won't find anywhere else in Southern California. If you're looking for fine jewelry at unbeatable prices, Ozell Jewelers is the place to go. Show appreciation to that special person in your life with something special to cherish forever. Ozell Jewelers, voted best jewelers in the high desert by the Daily Press regularly for years. Ozell Jewelers has been putting smiles on high desert faces for over 30 years. Ozell Jewelers in Rancho Cucamonga, Palm Desert, and Amargosa Road by Red Lobster in Victorville. Ozell Jewelers.
Hey, if you like shooting as much as I do, you've probably been to a lot of ranges. Unless you visited Burro Canyon Shooting Park, you've never seen anything like it. On the way there, you'll find yourself taking pictures as you traverse the majestic Azusa Canyon and wind your way up into the Angeles National Forest. With over 600 acres, including 19 private ranges, there's something for everyone. There's rifle and pistol ranges for beginners, right up to advanced shooters. And there's plenty of spaces to shoot sporting clay. You can make a family day of it, or you can bring a group for team building exercises. Bring a picnic lunch. On the weekends, they provide lunch. And don't worry, they always have ammo in case you forget yours or run out. One thing I can guarantee is that once you visited my friends at Burro Canyon Shooting Park, you'll be hooked and you'll keep coming back. BurroCanyon.com is their website, or call them at 626-910-1344. 626-910-1344. Hey, if you're just tuning into the Tim Donnelly Show, you need to back up your alarm clock to 3 p.m. every day, Pacific Standard Time, because we've been talking about some very important happenings in not only this country, but in terms of history. And one of the greatest threats to it is political correctness. I couldn't believe my eyes over the break. I was just perusing some stories, and the father of this Muslim terrorist, Islamic jihadist thug, whose name we shall not mention, said, "My son made a bad choice." Can you believe that? A bad choice. Okay, going to the movies to see an R-rated movie when you're underage and sneaking in, that's a bad choice. Going out and sneaking out of your house to go do something with your friends that you know your parents wouldn't approve of, which probably every teenager's done. Well, another bad choice. These are not devastating. They can be, but they're generally things that teenagers do. Bethany, help me out here. Give me another example of a bad choice.
Oh, like when I was grounded on Valentine's Day my sophomore year and I snuck out of the house. That was a bad choice, too.
Okay. We're going to have to talk to your dad. Okay, another bad choice, but not deadly.
No, I didn't hurt anything, anybody, nothing.
Right. Any parent knows, and anybody who's worth their salt did something to rebel against their parents. It's just in our nature. And all of us can say that our kids are great kids, even if they've made some bad choices. And they go through periods of life. But being a grown man who decides to get into a car, put on body armor, and go kill people because they drew a cartoon, that defies the bad choice description. But what we discovered about talking about this topic is you can't really talk about what's really happening without being stopped by the PC police. So go ahead and roll that first clip. I'll keep an eye on the clock, and you can hear Pamela Geller, who organized this event in Texas, and a CNN anchorette.
Executive Director of the American Freedom Defense Initiative. She organized the Draw Mohammed event in Texas. Pam, thanks so much for being on New Day.
Thank you for having me, Allison.
Pamela, where were you when the gunman opened fire, and what happened inside?
We had just finished a free speech conference. We had Geert Wilders there. We had depictions of Muhammad through history for the past 1,400 years, and we had held a contest, as you know, and the winner, interestingly enough, was a former Muslim, Bosch Fawston, and we had finished the event. It was really very well received, roughly 300 people there, and it was at that time where these two gunmen attempted to storm the building, and they shot at the police, and we were all in the room, and the police came in and put us all into lockdown. And so, of course, this terrible incident reflects the need for such conferences. It's illustrative of the violent assault on the freedom of speech.
Pam, you know, there was a tweet sent out before the attack, warning of the attack. Did you get any intel from the police about just how dangerous an event like this could be?
Well, it's dangerous because increasingly we're abridging our freedoms so as not to offend savages. The very idea that if something offends me, or I'm insulted by something, I'll kill you, and that way I can get my way. And somehow this is okay with members of the elite media and academia is outrageous.
Well,
it's a cartoon. It's a cartoon.
Sure.
It's a cartoon.
And
the idea that we can't
that this warrants the violence that you saw. I mean, I haven't heard anyone in the media saying that it's okay for gunmen to show up.
It's astonishing that the clarity with which Pamela Geller is expressing what's really at stake. And what's really at stake, as she said, is abridging our fundamental natural right, our freedom of speech, in order to appease savages. And then she identifies the savages. But after this break, you're going to hear her be pilloried, and then the CNN anchorette will say that she said something she never said. She never said anything about their faith. She simply said that she identified someone behaving as a savage as opposed to someone behaving in civilized society. If you're civilized and you don't like what someone says, you disagree with them. If you're a savage, you kill them. If you've been listening long to the Tim Donnelly Show, you know that we talk constantly about defending freedom and about defending our natural inalienable rights. The Firearms Policy Coalition is a partner of the Tim Donnelly Show. But more than that, they're on the front lines every day in Sacramento and all across the state, in the courts, defending your Second Amendment right, that is a natural right that the government merely acknowledged in the Second Amendment. If you value your freedom, then you need to join Firearms Policy Coalition. Become a member. I'm a member, and I'm happy to support an organization that is doing such an incredible job. Go to joinfpc.org. The Tim Donnelly Show sent you. Or go to timdonnellyshow.com and click on the FPC link to make it easy. But whatever you do, join today. FPC.org. We are halfway through another edition of the Tim Donnelly Show, and 323-746-TALK is how you can get in on the action. But before the break, we were listening to a segment of an interview that we're going to play here in its entirety. We're going to chop it up, but it's so important. You're going to hear me many times talk about what's wrong. And I will be relentless in exposing and pointing out the corruption of our government, the malfeasance of both political parties, and anything and everything that affects our freedom, particularly here in California. But this is an example of someone, first of all, who has courage, and that's Pamela Geller, who is the founder of the American Freedom Defense Initiative. And who would have thought that she would actually plan a contest to draw Muhammad, a cartoon contest. And I believe her intent was, to show Americans what's wrong, that they don't have this freedom. But she drew out the Islamic jihadist thugs who were just looking for an opportunity to kill an infidel. And an infidel to them is anyone who is not as crazy as them. Anyone who is not as sick and twisted and perverted and ascribes to a version of Islam that defends the murder of those with whom you don't agree. And just before the break, she said, why should we abridge our speech so as to not offend savages? And identified savages as those who, instead of having a disagreement and perhaps an argument where words are fired at each other, resort to violence, and they believe that they have the right to silence you permanently. The problem is they fired shots in the wrong state. They fired shots in Texas. If they'd done it here in California, well, all bets are off. Probably would have had the Marxist progressives in Sacramento defending their right to kill people in order to shut them up because their viewpoint is so offensive. But in Texas, a hero traffic cop pulled out his service revolver and neutralized the threat in seconds, and they were not able to kill anyone except themselves. Go ahead and roll a little bit more of this tape.
Gunmen to show up at an event like this. But what people are saying is that there's always this fine line, between freedom of speech and being intentionally incendiary and provocative.
Intentionally incendiary and provocative by drawing a cartoon. This is the low state of freedom of speech in this country. I disagree, and I disagree most vehemently. The First Amendment, not the 8th, not the 10th, but the first, protects all speech, not just ideas that we like, but even core political speech, ideas that...
Isn't it great to hear Pamela Geller educating the CNN anchorette? It's as if she didn't go to college and learn what the First Amendment was. I wish she would have interjected and said, and by the way, the Second Amendment is what backs up the First. But wow, this is how we need to push back and debate the leftists who want to control your mind and control your thoughts by controlling every word that comes out of your mouth.
Ideas that we don't like, because who would decide what's good and what's forbidden? The Islamic State? The government? Inoffensive speech, Allison, needs no protection. But in a pluralistic society, you have offensive speech. You have ideas. You have an exchange of ideas. You don't shut down a discussion because I'm offended. If something offends me, should I go out and slaughter people?
Sure,
when Jesus Christ was put in a jar of urine, it was called art. Did Christians like it? Of course not. Did they slaughter people? Did they burn embassies? Did they kill whole communities? Of course not. This cannot be sanctioned. Yeah, this cannot be sanctioned. The West must stand up for freedom of speech. It's the core fundamental element of this constitutional republic.
I mean, what your critics say about this is that you weren't just going after, say, Al-Qaeda or ISIS or extremism, but even just Islam. I mean, let me read to you a portion, an excerpt from your keynote speaker.
Right there. The CNN anchorette wants to always take the discussion, and almost all of the leftist news media does this. They don't want to talk about what's really happening. And Pamela Geller was there at the event, could have paid with her life, put everything on the line for freedom of speech. And yet, it's not some organized wing of Al-Qaeda. It's not some organized deployment of ISIS. These are two individuals who are in America right now, one of whom was identified as a threat to this country, but the Department of Homeland Security was too busy considering people like you and I to be threats to this country. They're too busy spying on Americans to deal with the threats to this country because it isn't politically correct. But thank God in Texas, that cop, he's a hero, by the way. That's the antidote to thuggery, is heroes. And you know what, in the end, it isn't the politicians that are going to save this country. It isn't the elected officials. It isn't the next president. It's people like you and I. It's people like Pamela Geller. And you know what? We're going to get her on this show. We're going to promote her books because she has courage. And what is lacking in America today is courage. You know, I didn't see anyone except for one Democrat go to Baltimore. Shame on every one of those Republican presidential candidates. And we're going to talk about 2016 in the 5 o'clock hour, but for crying out loud, go there and listen to people. It isn't going to kill you. But right here is another great opportunity. And so far, I don't know about you, Bethany. Have you gotten anything over the wires about any of the presidential candidates talking about what happened in Texas?
I haven't heard anything yet.
Yeah, if you got a link or something, send it to us, and we'll update. But I hear crickets. But we get to listen to the rest of this interview. Let's roll a little bit more.
Ideas that we don't like, because who would decide what's good and what's forbidden? The Islamic State? The government? Inoffensive speech, Allison, needs no protection. But in a pluralistic society, you have offensive speech. You have ideas. You have an exchange of ideas. You don't shut down a discussion because I'm offended. If something offends me, should I go out and slaughter people?
Sure,
when Jesus Christ was put in a jar of urine, it was called art. Did Christians like it? Of course not. Did they slaughter people? Did they burn embassies? Did they kill whole communities? Of course not. This cannot be sanctioned. Yeah, this cannot be sanctioned. The West must stand up for freedom of speech. It's the core fundamental element of this constitutional republic.
I mean, what your critics say about this is that you weren't just going after, say, Al-Qaeda or ISIS or extremism, but even just Islam. I mean, let me read to you a portion, an excerpt from your keynote speaker, Geert Wilders, who said this to the crowd before the attack broke out. He said, "Our Judeo-Christian culture is far superior to the Islamic one. I can give you a million reasons, but here is an important one. We've got humor and they don't. Islam does not allow free speech because free speech shows how evil and wrong Islam is. And Islam does not allow humor because humor shows how foolish and ridiculous it is." Now, that's not about extremism. He's talking about a religion of which there are 3 million Muslims even here in the United States.
First of all, he's entitled to his opinion. End of story. So what? So he said that. And frankly, what he said was true. There is no humor. Khomeini, when he took over in 1979, said there is.
You gotta love her. She is going in the hero column, and we will play more of this interview when we get back. But I love the way she just simply said, so what? He has a right to say whatever he wants. That's his opinion. It's a free country. She is defending freedom of speech, not speech itself. 323-746-TALK. 323-746-8255. If you want to exercise your freedom of speech here on the Tim Donnelly Show. More coming up after the break.
Don't you think it's about time you treat yourself or someone you love to something very special? Well, Ozell Jewelers, the finest jewelry store in the high desert, is known throughout the high desert for having the largest variety of fine-looking jewelry and gifts for every special occasion. Ozell custom designs and manufactures their own jewelry, so you'll be able to find exclusive, one-of-a-kind, stunning styles you won't find anywhere else in Southern California. If you're looking for fine jewelry at unbeatable prices, Ozell Jewelers is the place to go. Show appreciation to that special person in your life with something special to cherish forever. Ozell Jewelers, voted best jewelers in the high desert by the Daily Press regularly for years. Ozell Jewelers has been putting smiles on high desert faces for over 30 years. Ozell Jewelers in Rancho Cucamonga, Palm Desert, and Amargosa Road by Red Lobster in Victorville. Ozell Jewelers.
If you ever find yourself in my hometown of Twin Peaks or anywhere in the San Bernardino Mountains, there's one place you absolutely will not forgive yourself if you don't stop in for dinner. Well, heck, you can stop in for dinner, for drinks, for sushi. They're open 7 days a week. It's the Antlers, and they are right in the center of Twin Peaks, which, if you blink when you drive through, you'll miss them. So when you get to the highest point in Twin Peaks, you will see an historic building on your right. That's the grill at the Antlers. And it's always a good idea to have a reservation if you want to sit down to dinner, because they are in high demand. 909-336-2600 to make a reservation. If you're coming in on Wednesday or Thursday, you can just sneak upstairs for sushi. But whatever you do, make sure you tell them that it was the Tim Donnelly Show that sent you. And we've been having an important discussion on the First Amendment. And more importantly than that, we're talking about someone who has the courage to effectively and articulately defend it. And the reason I'm going through this whole interview is I want you to see how the left continues to feint and parry and do head fakes, which most people fall for at some point, but not Pamela Geller, who is, if you don't know who she is the woman who took a stand in New York against the building of a mosque right near Ground Zero. She has formed a group called the American Defense Initiative. She put on an event in Texas over the weekend. It was a cartoon contest, just like they had in Paris. But this wasn't Paris, and it wasn't even Paris, Texas. It was Garland Texas, and when Islamic jihadist thugs opened fire, a Texas hero, a cop, immediately neutralized the threat by killing them with 2 clean shots with his service revolver. And instead of talking about any of that, the CNN interview that you're about to listen to, the reporterette, the anchorette, opens fire on Pamela Geller for her language, for the fact that she's not talking about Al-Qaeda, but she's talking about those who practice a faith and tolerate extremism and jihad and are silent when innocents are slaughtered all over the world in the name of their faith. And she isn't shy. Go ahead and roll a little bit more.
The fact is that we need to have this discussion. Allison, there's a problem in Islam. And the problem is we can't talk about the problem. We are seeing the wholesale slaughter of Christians in Iraq and in Syria, in Nigeria, in the Congo, Central African Republic. The jihad is raging. And all we can talk about is backlash-ophobia. It's nonsense. We have to be able to discuss. And when you say I'm anti-Muslim, excuse me, I'm anti-jihad. And anyone that says that I'm anti-Muslim is implying that all Muslims support jihad.
Well, sure,
that sounds Islamic.
See, right there. Stop it right there. That is why she's so brilliant. The CNN reporter is trying to get her to say that she is anti-Muslim. She's trying to get her to equivocate all Muslims. But in doing so, she calls out the hypocrisy of the left, who, just like they did in Baltimore, who assume that people who happen to have black skin somehow can't help themselves riot. What a preposterous and insulting and offensive notion. If you talk to some of the callers to this show, like Gail in Adelanto and others, Kevin called us from down in, where was that? Torrance. We have supporters of every skin color across the state on the Tim Donnelly Show, and we evaluate people on their ideas. We treat them as human beings, as Americans. But the left puts people into boxes. And it is so awesome to hear somebody calling them out. We will play the rest of this interview in the next segment. I'll try not to interrupt as much, but I just having way too much fun. And we will also get to the 2016 election and your calls, 323-746-TALK. That's 323-746-8255 if you're just getting off work. More on the Tim Donnelly Show right after this break. Hey, if you like shooting as much as I do, you've probably been to a lot of ranges. Unless you visited Burro Canyon Shooting Park, you've never seen anything like it. On the way there, you'll find yourself taking pictures as you traverse the majestic Azusa Canyon and wind your way up into the Angeles National Forest. With over 600 acres, including 19 private ranges, there's something for everyone. There's rifle and pistol ranges for beginners, right up to advanced shooters. And there's plenty of spaces to shoot sporting clay. You can make a family day of it, or you can bring a group for team building exercises. Bring a picnic lunch. On the weekends, they provide lunch. And don't worry, they always have ammo in case you forget yours or run out. One thing I can guarantee is that once you visited my friends at Burro Canyon Shooting Park, you'll be hooked, and you'll keep coming back. BurroCanyon.com is their website, or call them at 626-910-1344, 626-910-1344. Hey, if you like what you've been hearing on the Tim Donnelly Show, then support it. If you own a business, we have a tremendous audience, not only on air, but also online. And we've got a great social media presence. And you can participate in all of that by simply picking up the phone and calling 760-244-4444. That's the office line to Bethany, who can schedule you to come in and record your own commercial, or you can send us a script and I'll read it. Whatever you do, you got to act now, because your future customers are my loyal listeners.
And now, broadcasting from deep behind enemy lines in the occupied territory of the Socialist Republic of California, your host, former California State Assemblyman and Governor candidate, Tim Donnelly.
If you're just tuning in to the Tim Donnelly Show on the Radio Free California Network, you're just in time, because we've got a great hour coming up here. We previously were playing some audio of a fantastic interview with Pamela Geller, who is the founder of the American Freedom Defense Initiative. She also fought to keep the mosque from being built at Ground Zero. And by the way, when we're done with this clip, I am going to get into your calls and the 2016 election, as long as we have enough time. So just jot down this number, or make sure you plug it into your phone. That's 323-746-TALK, 323-746-8255. But this clip is an example of how Americans should act in the face of leftist lies and games and head fakes designed to silence you or make you feel like you don't know what you're talking about. But it doesn't work on Pamela Geller. Go ahead and roll some more, Bethany.
Islamophobic to me. That sounds Islamophobic
But the
to me.
reason that people believe your group is anti-Islam is because of quotes like that from the keynote speaker, where he was just talking about Islam. He wasn't what you're mentioning. I mean, the things that you're citing are the extremism, the violence, the terrorism. But he's just talking about Islam. I mean, how can you say that 3 million Muslims here in the United States are humorless? How can you say that they don't believe in peace?
He did not say that. He did not say that. We're talking about the ideology. Under the Sharia, there is creed apartheid. There is gender apartheid. There is Islamic anti-Semitism and misogyny. These are very real. And who gives voice to the voiceless? Where are the victims get to speak? Every time a victim speaks out, they're accused of Islamophobia. It's absurd on its face. And you can quote Mr. Wilders, but when you're talking about my work and what I do, quote me and quote my work.
Well,
but I
only
support
because
what
he was
Mr.
your
Wilders
keynote
is
speaker
doing.
are we quoting him. But so that represents part of what the event was about.
But what did he say that wasn't true?
Well, he said, let me tell you what he said that wasn't true. He said that Islam does not allow humor. Now, I mean, Pam, do you know anyone who's Muslim?
Of course.
And do you think they're humorless?
You're being you're being very condescending.
No, Pam, listen.
Wow. Now right there, where she interrupts the content of what she's saying to call her out for being so condescending. Do you know anyone who's Muslim? As if somehow Pamela is what? A bigot? Intolerant? No. She is very articulate in what she's fighting, and she talks about the ideology, but I love the way that she stopped and called her out. Go ahead and roll some more.
It was the Ayatollah. It was the Ayatollah Khomeini. Are you willing to say that the Ayatollah Khomeini was not supreme leader in the Muslim world? Are you willing to say that?
But of
he's
course
the one who said there were no jokes.
Speaker saying this. This wasn't the Ayatollah saying this.
He's the one who said that there are no jokes. Okay, so, I don't like what you're saying, Allison. So because I don't like what you're saying and you're offending me, should we be violent, so that we can shut down your speech?
Not.
Is that what you're advocating?
No. Listen, of course not.
Yeah, so if you draw a cartoon that is considered offensive by the those within Islam who have determined that the Prophet will never be criticized or characterized the way he was in the Charlie Hebdo cartoons. And if you don't know what Charlie Hebdo is, don't panic. It was a magazine in France, okay? People keep saying this. Oh, and by the way, a lot of the people who came out to defend freedom of speech in Paris are the very same people attacking Pamela Geller in the United States. I don't know what they would have done if Americans had been killed, but thank God only the thugs were killed because they actually knew how to shoot their weapons. But Pamela is doing an incredible job of pushing back and countering every single lie that the CNN reporterette is throwing at her. Keep rolling it.
Conversation. Look, this is what's so great. We're having this conversation on CNN. It's great to be able to debate this and have this conversation. And by the way, what's interesting about your event is that everyone, even there's this piece in the Daily Beast right now that talks about that there were scores of Muslim leaders who supported your right to have this event. They didn't like it, but they supported your right to freedom of speech. Let me read to you a quote from one of them. This was a New York City Muslim community leader. She said, Pamela Geller can draw any damn cartoon she wants, and I defend her right to do so. I have always fought for her right to be a bigot, and I have the right to counter her bigotry with my own free speech. I mean, this is a Muslim leader saying...
What a joke. So she's saying, because a Muslim called you a bigot and said you have every right to be a bigot, that's them defending freedom of speech. Where were these Muslims, these so-called peaceful Muslims, when all those people were killed in Paris for making a cartoon that exposed a lot of the hypocrisy of Islam? Where were they?
Saying that you have the right to have an event like that. But again,
yes.
I mean, the point
this is a Muslim leader who is attacking me and insulting me and ad hominem attacks, and isn't that generous of her? Look, she's not the problem. Okay? The problem is that a group, and we don't know how many others were involved, attempted to open fire on a gathering of free speech. That's the problem, Allison. You're bringing it up with these silly distractions. No one is saying that there aren't peaceful Muslims, but there is a problem in Islam, as illustrated last night, and anyone that addresses it gets attacked in this same way. Whereas you should be directing your barbs at the enforcers of the Sharia and those that seek to destroy and crush freedom of speech the way they did in Paris and in Copenhagen.
Listen, absolutely, Sam. I mean, the bottom line is that freedom of speech can never be met with violence. No one can ever open fire on a group of innocent people. I mean, obviously, that is from the get-go.
That right there is brilliant. Now, Pamela Geller has successfully gotten a leftist to agree with the principle she's defending, which is the right to free speech. Period. And the CNN anchor is actually somewhat eloquent in saying, absolutely, we must all be unified in defending free speech, and never can we condone violence. And then she almost immediately goes back to attacking the free speech of Pamela Geller.
Where you and I and everybody in this country agrees. But there is a debate to be had about what the line is between freedom of speech and provocation. Have we lost Pam? Oh, okay.
That's all right. We can cut it off there. Hey, if you found yourself, and it's not the craziest idea in the world, but if you found yourself confronted with a leftist with a camera, whether you were being interviewed by CNN or someone else, would you be able to defend these first principles as well as she did? I guarantee you I couldn't do what she just did, but I think all of us can learn from that and understand that there isn't anybody coming to defend our freedom. There's no cavalry that's going to ride in. It's up to us. It's up to every single one of us. You know, we talked, a week or so ago on this program about Jade Helm 15. I don't know why we have U.S. troops planning to practice and deploy and not deploy, but carry out exercises on U.S. soil. But it's deeply, deeply disconcerting to me. But you know what Americans need to be doing? We need to understand and defend that territory, and we need to step up and be counted, and we need to challenge it every time we see it. And yes, we also need to defend the lives of innocent individuals who might be going to the grocery store, or defend the lives of people who want to draw cartoons that 3 million Muslims might find offensive. Too bad. You came to America. We have the freedom of speech, and you have the freedom of speech. So use it. By the way, if you want to weigh in on this topic or the 2016 elections, we'll take your calls after this break. 323-746-TALK. Stay tuned.
Don't you think it's about time you treat yourself or someone you love to something very special? Well, Ozell Jewelers, the finest jewelry store in the high desert, is known throughout the high desert for having the largest variety of fine-looking jewelry and gifts for every special occasion. Ozell custom designs and manufactures their own jewelry, so you'll be able to find exclusive, one-of-a-kind, stunning styles you won't find anywhere else in Southern California. If you're looking for fine jewelry at unbeatable prices, Ozell Jewelers is the place to go. Show appreciation to that special person in your life with something special to cherish forever. Ozell Jewelers, voted best jewelers in the high desert by the Daily Press regularly for years. Ozell Jewelers has been putting smiles on high desert faces for over 30 years. Ozell Jewelers in Rancho Cucamonga, Palm Desert, and Amargosa Road by Red Lobster in Victorville. Ozell Jewelers.
Hey, if you like shooting as much as I do, you've probably been to a lot of ranges. Unless you visited Burro Canyon Shooting Park, you've never seen anything like it. On the way there, you'll find yourself taking pictures as you traverse the majestic Azusa Canyon and wind your way up into the Angeles National Forest. With over 600 acres, including 19 private ranges, there's something for everyone. There's rifle and pistol ranges for beginners, right up to advanced shooters. And there's plenty of spaces to shoot sporting clay. You can make a family day of it, or you can bring a group for team building exercises. Bring a picnic lunch. On the weekends, they provide lunch. And don't worry, they always have ammo in case you forget yours or run out. One thing I can guarantee is that once you visited my friends at Burro Canyon Shooting Park, you'll be hooked and you'll keep coming back. BurroCanyon.com is their website, or call them at 626-910-1344. 626-910-1344. I know you, if you feel like I do, you could probably listen to Pamela Geller all day. In that interview, if you didn't hear it in its entirety, it's interesting because it's been all chopped up, but you have to listen to the whole thing. Go to TimDonnellyShow.com. It's right up there. There's a link to a YouTube video that has the entire thing. But we are going to move on to the 2016 election. And, you know, it just so happens that there are all kinds of articles out about how the racial disparity, the racial divide in this country is greater now than it has been since the late 60s. All you had to do is turn on the TV last week. We won't rehash all that, but interesting story came out. Said U.S. split along racial lines on backlash against police. They took a poll. A resounding 96% of adults surveyed said that it was likely there would be additional racial disturbances this summer. A signal that Americans believe Baltimore's recent problems aren't a local phenomenon, but instead are symptomatic of broader national problems. I'm starting to think somebody's listening to this show in D.C. and in other places, because we already figured that out. There's definitely something deeper afoot there, and it has been irrelevant, the color of the president's skin, which at the current time is black. But here comes, I can't say here comes Johnny. Older listeners will know who I'm talking about, but if you're if you're around Bethany's age, you probably don't have a clue, huh? Do you know who Johnny Carson is?
Oh, Johnny Carson.
Right. Well, it's not.
No clue.
It's not Johnny Carson. It's Ben Carson. So today, as I told you at the top of the show, the Republican field just got more diversified, and diversification seems to be the goal of the left, even though their field so far consists of old white people. But the energy, the dynamism, is that a word? That one's not working for me. The energy and the enthusiasm and the diversity, if that is of interest to you, is in the Republican field. I don't look now, but I'm going to say something good about Republicans. So Ben Carson, who had an interesting rollout of his campaign this morning in Detroit, presented a video, which it was actually an excellent video, teasing a little bit of his history and his vision for America. And I like Ben Carson for his vision. He doesn't have a lot of political experience, and that is going to hurt him. But it is important to have him in this race, and it's irrelevant to me that he happens to have black skin. But it's not irrelevant to a lot of Americans, especially a lot of Americans in the black community. And I'm hoping that he will bring, he talked about healing. He talked about uniting Americans as one. And that's, nobody else has really been talking about that. He really does have a unique role to play in this, and not just because he happens to be black, but also he's a doctor. He's a very accomplished doctor, and he's somebody who came up from nothing. His personal story is a powerful story, and we will bring you more of it as time goes on. But the next time that a CNN or NPR or whatever leftist host who's on some network that's sponsored or in part by the government starts saying that Republicans don't care about poor people, well, you can start telling them Ben Carson's story. And his story is about a mom. I mean, we celebrated the Mom of the Year here. It was very popular on this program. It was very popular across America. A mother who stood up and refused to take crap from her kid. That resonates with all of us. Well, Ben Carson's story is one of a mother who refused, even though she herself couldn't read. She refused to allow her children to skip out on their education. She took no excuses. She took no prisoners. And I can't imagine what she must be feeling. I don't know if she's alive or not, but I can't imagine what she would be feeling knowing that her son spoke truth to power when he addressed President Obama and shot down Obamacare and brought up personal responsibility. And yes, he may not have the best chance in this fight, but I would not count this man out. I think he is a serious candidate, and I got to talk the Second Amendment with him. But you know what? There's room in the big tent, because this is America. It's not just the Republican Party. It's America. And I'm excited to see what he does. More on the 2016 elections coming up right after this break. Stay tuned. If you've been listening long to the Tim Donnelly Show, you know that we talk constantly about defending freedom and about defending our natural inalienable rights. The Firearms Policy Coalition is a partner of the Tim Donnelly Show. But more than that, they're on the front lines every day in Sacramento and all across the state, in the courts, defending your Second Amendment right. That is a natural right that the government merely acknowledged in the Second Amendment. If you value your freedom, then you need to join Firearms Policy Coalition. Become a member. I'm a member, and I'm happy to support an organization that is doing such an incredible job. Go to joinfpc.org. The Tim Donnelly Show sent you. Or go to timdonnellyshow.com and click on the FPC link to make it easy. But whatever you do, join today. FPC.org. Don't look now. But 6 o'clock is sneaking up on us, but thank God we still have 2 segments left in this edition of the Tim Donnelly Show. Don't miss out. If you got something to say, 323-746-TALK. That's 323-746-8255. Radio Free California Network. We stream live at timdonnellyshow.com. We post stuff up there, and you can connect with us on Facebook and Twitter. So when you get home, not while you're driving, make sure you go and visit the website. You'll be glad you did. I don't know how Hillary's feeling, because for such an experienced politician, her campaign is exhibiting more arrogance and getting more negative press than anyone I can think of in a long, long time. And the more you see and hear of her, the less likable she is. So, of course, what does her team do? They actually did some smart things. They roll out her husband, who is supposed to be the master of the public domain of politics. He's the artful craftsman of politics, the statesman. So he gets out there on TV and they ask him, "Hey, Bill, why did you go to Tanzania and get a $500,000 payday for one speech?" And he says, "Well, I'm sure that they just wanted to hear me. I mean, I spend 2 hours a day preparing for speeches, and I got bills to pay. I got telephone bills and gas bills, and I'm sorry, Bethany, were you trying to talk to me?
Bills for girlfriends.
Well, I got Monica bills to pay, and I got monster bills. But $500,000, it doesn't go that far. It doesn't go as far as it used to. I mean, you got to be kidding me. This guy thinks they're paying him $500,000 per speech because they think he's good, because they're interested in his insights. No, they want access to his wife, who is going to have an avalanche, a tsunami of cash behind her campaign. And I don't know what to say about our friend Bill Clinton, because he's not at the top of his game right now, and neither is she. So to make matters worse for Hillary, here comes Carly. So today, in addition to the announcement of Ben Carson, who, as we've already stated in the previous break, is an accomplished doctor, he also is a member of a minority community that the left has always counted on to vote Democrat, even though their policies have hurt the black community more than probably any other. Their embrace of illegal immigration has devastated jobs for young black men and women coming up. They're taking this entire community for granted, has certainly opened up an opportunity for Republicans. Let's see if they know what to do with it. But Carly Fiorina is in a whole different arena. First of all, she has made it clear that she is just going to go toe-to-toe with Hillary. And if you're out there voting for Hillary simply because she's a woman, well, good news. Now you have a choice. I mean, after all, doesn't the left always talk about freedom of choice? Yeah, sure. When it comes to anything but guns, and whether you want paper or plastic, or where you want to live, or what you want to drive, or where you want to work. But now there's another woman in the race. And that's not a big deal to me. I like Carly Fiorina, not because she's a woman, but because when my wife and I met her at an event in Los Angeles when she was running for U.S. Senate, she has a powerful story of overcoming breast cancer and continuing to run for office. She has accomplishments. I actually wrote out a list. It was funny. I didn't need a whole lot of space for Hillary's accomplishments. Don't laugh, Bethany. I'm sorry. Carly on the left. I put Carly on the left just to be fair. First female CEO of a Fortune 500 company. What do you think of that?
I think that's pretty awesome.
And what does Hillary have to show for it? First lady.
Well,
that's it.
Kind of that she shared.
That what?
That she shared with Monica.
Yeah, exactly. So she was sort of a first lady, but Carly actually did something. I mean, she started out in sales and worked her way up. And it, whatever you think of her tenure, she served as CEO of Hewlett Packard for something like 6 years. But she ran a major business, which is exactly what running the presidency is like. She has executive experience. And then I look over at Hillary's resume, and it's nothing but being an activist, being a community organizer, being the wife of the president, the wife of a governor from a small state. Nothing. She's got nothing. And, okay, so she was Secretary of State. She couldn't even manage her emails. She couldn't manage 2 phones. She can't be honest about anything. And when I read to you some of the malfeasance of the Marxist progressives who pretend to be Democrats here in the state of California, nobody wants that. People are tired of tired rhetoric. They're tired of the same old promises from people who have never accomplished anything in their lives and who have no integrity. And so one of the things I like about Carly is she does have integrity. Now, you know what they are going to attack her on? They're going to go after the fact that she's rich. Well, she's self-made, first of all. But then they're going to go after the fact that as CEO, she laid off people. Well, in order to lay people off, you have to have hired them in the first place. I bet Hillary Clinton has never hired anyone except on a government payroll. And even then, Hillary couldn't pay the women the same as the men, even though she makes that a big issue. The hypocrisy of the left knows no bounds. And I think with her engaging personality, I think Carly's going to win over some of the people who would have supported Hillary. I just think she will. She is a likable person. She's funny. I wish we had that clip. She said there was a 1-minute video up on one of these websites where she made her announcement. She actually made her announcement on Good Day, Good Morning America, GMA, with that George Stephanopoulos. But she has a video clip where somebody asked her the difference between her and Hillary, and she said that Hillary thinks that logging in flight miles is an accomplishment, whereas I know it's just an activity. Because, of course, when you're the CEO of one of the world's biggest companies, you fly all over the world. So I'm sure she has enough flight miles to go anywhere she wants. But once again, it's the Republican side that is showing promise. It is the conservatives that are they're the hope of this country right now. And if you don't believe it would make a big difference to get a different president, if we had a different president of the United States and we have control of the Congress, we could hold our elected officials accountable on the Republican side of the aisle for actually killing all these socialist programs that threaten our freedom and are driving businesses out of our country. And it would just be fun to maybe see the government stop being the greatest threat to the future of Americans and start defending and protecting the fundamental natural rights of Americans for a change. I don't know about you, but I'm ready for a change. And it looks like some change is coming. If one of these candidates can just emerge from the pack and take on whoever the Democrats put up. It looks like it's going to be Hillary right now, but you never know. Anyway, if you got an opinion about this or anything else, 323-746-TALK. That's 323-746-8255.
Don't you think it's about time you treat yourself or someone you love to something very special? Well, Ozell Jewelers, the finest jewelry store in the high desert, is known throughout the high desert for having the largest variety of fine-looking jewelry and gifts for every special occasion. Ozell custom designs and manufactures their own jewelry, so you'll be able to find exclusive, one-of-a-kind, stunning styles you won't find anywhere else in Southern California. If you're looking for fine jewelry at unbeatable prices, Ozell Jewelers is the place to go. Show appreciation to that special person in your life with something special to cherish forever. Ozell Jewelers, voted best jewelers in the high desert by the Daily Press regularly for years. Ozell Jewelers has been putting smiles on high desert faces for over 30 years. Ozell Jewelers in Rancho Cucamonga, Palm Desert, and Amargosa Road by Red Lobster in Victorville. Ozell Jewelers.
Hey, if you like what you've been hearing on the Tim Donnelly Show, then support it. If you own a business, we have a tremendous audience, not only on air, but also online. And we've got a great social media presence, and you can participate in all of that by simply picking up the phone and calling 760-244-4444. That's the office line to Bethany, who can schedule you to come in and record your own commercial, or you can send us a script and I'll read it. Whatever you do, you got to act now, because your future customers are my loyal listeners. Well, I hate to tell you this, if you're just tuning in, we're almost out of time here at the Tim Donnelly Show, but you made it with just enough time to at least hear something on the Tim Donnelly Show. We had some great clips earlier of Pamela Geller defending the First Amendment. We had a traffic cop in Texas who took out 2 Islamic jihadist thugs. Yes, that is the new word you're not allowed to say in America, thug. So I'm going to say it as much as possible on this show. And the antidote to thuggery are Americans. Americans who understand their rights. Americans who will take the fight to the leftists and to those who wish to control us, those who wish to silence us. And I don't know what you think, but I think the Tim Donnelly Show is the antidote to thuggery in California. If you would like to be part of the show, put this number in your phone, 323-746-TALK, 323-746-8255. We're going to take a call from Chris in San Bernardino. Hey, Chris, welcome to the Tim Donnelly Show.
Thank you. Good day.
Yeah.
Jihadists should know that when they come into our country, legally or otherwise, and pull their acts of violence, that they will be beheaded and buried with swine. That would put a stop to it.
Well, we don't really behead people here. It's not one of our cultural... it's not part of our culture, but shooting and defending ourselves. Now, here's the interesting thing. Let's make special note of this. They shot first. Americans, by nature, are not looking for violence. But these jihadist thugs are looking for trouble, and they found trouble. Here they are in body armor. They're in a car. You've got an officer standing out in front of an event. Now, to her credit, Pamela Geller paid for a lot of security for this event. She knew there was going to be trouble. But isn't it interesting that it didn't take much? Here you've got a guy who's probably had a 45 or I don't know what they carry nowadays. It's standard, probably 9 mil or a 40 caliber. And 2 shots, 2 kills. 15 seconds long, he dispatched the threat. Hey, Chris, thanks for calling in to the Tim Donnelly Show. We are just about out of time here, but appreciate your call.
Thank you.
Hey, today's show, and if you didn't hear it, go to timdonnellyshow.com and you can play it back later on. there's some great lessons in the way that Pamela Geller handled the CNN anchorette who continually came at her, more offended by the words she used than by the evil that was done in Texas. But that's typical of the left. They consider armed citizens, they consider citizens who are unafraid to be a threat because they want the government to control everything. But here at the Tim Donnelly Show, we got your back. Hey, I can't do this show by myself. I want to say thank you to my wife for letting me, my producer, Bethany Nosko, the Noskinator, and Cassie Cassidy, who is our guest booker, and John and Sean for having our back on all the technology. 3 o'clock tomorrow. Be here.